Alright, now this is part 2 of my top 50 favorite albums of 2016. This time I'm going to do albums 30 to 11. Starting with number 30, which is the new Mandolin Orange album, Blindfaller, which, is definitely one of the best, folk and Americana records this year. Mandolin Orange, I think, came through with definitely some of their most, mature songs to date, pretty much, especially if you look at the lyrics, pretty much, which, yeah, it definitely does sort of continue what made the band so admirable on their 2013 record, This Side of Jordan, which would be, intelligent, heartbreaking lyrics, very earnest and beautiful harmonies, and very organic instrumentation, pretty much. But, I also like how, they cover quite a few other topics on this album, including the song Wildfire, which, which seems to sort of, talk about a man that was probably very close to the front man Andrew Marlin, who fought in the war pretty much. So yeah, definitely a very good album. Number 29 is the new Big Ups album, Before a Million Universes. Probably the best post-hardcore album that I've heard this year. Definitely, a great record. I like kind of the loud, soft dynamics that this record has. There are points where, the lead singer will, whisper the lyrics and, the instrumentation will be very subtle. And then at points where it just gets really explosive and, gets really explosive and loud and kind of in your face pretty much. But I like those dynamics. I mean, if it were just in your face the whole time, it would be a little kind of, it would be a little grating, I think. But there's some very heartfelt lyrics on this thing. The musicianship is great. The production is fantastic. The guitars are definitely coming through very loud and clear in the mix really nicely. So it's a perfect balance of kind of lo-fi, but at the same time, very well produced too. I like how, the band pretty much, pays homage to their biggest influence, which happens to be the underground rock legend Slint, without, trying to rehash what they've done or anything like that. Not that I've listened to Slint, but, I'm going to have to, check them out sometime, because I really enjoyed this new record from Big Ups. Ups over here. It's up over here. Really great underground noise rock record over here. Alright, number 28, and it would make sense, and I'm wearing this Wilco shirt because at number 28 is the new Wilco record, Schmilco, which is their 10th studio album following their Grammy-nominated 2015 effort, Star Wars, which was a fantastic record, by the way. Schmilco, on the other hand, kind of, while the previous record was, very kind of ballsy, gutsy, in your face, and definitely had some great energy to it, and was, very much on the more raucous kind of, indie rock side of things. This one, however, this album over here is much more stripped back, a little quieter. They turned down the amps a little bit this time around, but still the band is, I like how they strip things back, but they don't play things safe or try to tone it down a little bit. In fact, this record still sounds very inventive and masterful. I mean, just look at Nels Cline's kind of rough around the edges guitar stylings on here and stuff like that. but also I feel this album is also really refreshing because I like how Jeff Tweedy sort of goes back to his songwriting skills, I think, here on this record, really kind of, he kind of reflects on, like, his youth and his family and, like, his history a little bit, being in a band and stuff like that. Like, he kind of reflects on his youth on songs like the opener, Normal American Kids, but then he covers some pretty vivid subjects on songs like Happiness or Quarters. So he really does show off his songwriting, chops again on this record. Even though I wouldn't say his vocals are amazing, they could have been a little more passionate, but at least it's still Jeff Tweedy, and they still have, at least it still sounds like Jeff Tweedy, and that's really all that matters there. And production on here, the Broke Pop instrumentation is consistently well done, and stuff like that. So yeah, really great record. It has grown on me since I reviewed it, I will admit. Okay. This part of the list seems to have a lot of the folkier stuff in it. And that new Wilco record was great, but I think the one album that might beat it a little bit would have to be at number 27, which is the self-titled debut album from Case Lang Veirs, which is a supergroup of 3 very talented singer-songwriters, Nico Case, Katie Lang, and Laura Veirs. And I was pleasantly surprised by this project over here. I was skeptical because, collaboration records, are kind of, can be kind of lackluster pretty much, mostly because the 2 artists working together don't really have any chemistry. Don't really have that much chemistry to it, and it's even more complex when 3 people collaborate. But yet, here we have one of the best indie folk albums this year, with beautifully lavish production, as well as very gorgeous and harmonious vocal harmonies on here. And they all provided some very good lyrics to the album, very poetic and very intelligent. So yeah, it's sure this album may not be anything altogether new for any of these songwriters, but really just it's definitely it does a good job of pretty much going against the grain of other pretty mediocre or sometimes awful collaboration records. So don't be going into this record being like, oh, I'm not gonna like this if I am a Nico Case fan or a Katie Lang fan or a Laura Veirs fan, because this project is great. Alright, number 26, the new Stray Birds album, Magic Fire, which the Stray Birds came through with definitely, their most expansive record yet, following up their really solid 2014 record, Best Medicine. But still, they haven't lost what made them so great, which would be the fantastic songwriting. They're very, they're very inviting and, very admirable harmonies. Inviting and very admirable harmonies too, as well as the very organic instrumentation. They work with a legendary producer here on this record, Larry Campbell, who's worked with the likes of people like Bob Dylan and Levon Helm here. And this album definitely has a series of firsts for the band. For example, they one outside producer, and 2, another big one would have to be they have live drums on this record, played by Shane Leonard here, who even provides a lead vocal part onto one track. track. And yeah, it's definitely very ambitious, but still at the same time, very quality stuff, I will admit. Okay. Number 25, a strange, mind-bending IDM album that I had experienced this year. But, you know, I love it for that reason. That is the new Matmos album, Ultimate Care 2. Matmos is an electronic duo from Baltimore who, there's a crazy concept behind this record. But a pretty intriguing and cool concept, too. For the entirety of this album, which is basically just a 38-minute long piece with over 8 different passages in it, the duo samples a washing machine, either playing it as a drum or like processing it or manipulating it in some sort of way to make it sound like just a really weird kind of, but really kind of, cool, unusual instrument there. Like, trying to sort of show the musical possibilities of a washing machine, pretty much, I mean, trust me, since I first heard this record, I never looked at a washing machine the same way again. I'm like, Again, I mean, I do find it impressive that these guys are talented and definitely creative enough to make me want to listen to a washing machine for 40 minutes, pretty much. For 40 minutes, pretty much. There's only one moment in the entire piece where the duo, basically just, records just the sounds of a washing machine without any processing or anything like that. But really, the really exciting moments of the piece are the moments where, the duo, does something weird and strange with it. So it's a very, it's definitely a very intriguing and very kooky take on a washing machine right here. I mean, this is my introduction to Matmos, but, this is probably a good one because, they're known for sampling all kinds of weird objects in their music. Alright, number 24 is, the new Beyonce album, Lemonade, which is probably, probably one of the most obvious here on this list, but trust me, it's on here for a reason, though. Beyonce has definitely come through with, her most, conceptual and definitely some of her most well-done material to date, which is pretty surprising coming out of me, considering I've never been, like, a big Beyonce fan. But really, I really love this record, for, the lyrics on here, they can get a little cliched certain moments, but you could tell even then there's a lot of emotional, like, investment in it to make it very compelling. Also, musically, I think this is Beyonce at her most adventurous yet. And even some of the guest features on here are pretty unexpected. I mean, sure, The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar are a couple of expected ones, but then we have UK singer James Blake and even Jack White. Yep, the White Stripes guy on a song on here too. And, I will admit, the guest features did a good job, sort of playing their parts and, kind of the story record that Beyonce has. So it would make sense that she would have a visual album to go with it, too. So, like, Beyonce's vocals on here are great, as well as, great lyrics and hooks, and, definitely a very ambitious record. So I can see why the critics are just praising this up to the high heavens. Alright, number 23 over here, the new Angel Olsen album, My Woman. Definitely one of the best indie rock albums that come out this year. Even though there's also elements of, like, maybe, like, grunge, folk, and alternative country in there, too. That sound really nice. But this is just a painfully honest, and a very expressive and, intriguing new record right here. From Angel Olsen's very, just, to Angel Olsen's very powerful and, thematic vocals to, like, her, her fantastic lyrics on here. Great production on here, good balance of rough and, good balance of rough and polished, pretty much. Just here, pretty much, easily. And, the singles on here are great. And even the extended cuts, like Sister, are on here fantastic, which is probably the best song on the record, in my opinion. Just so powerful and, effective, and that guitar solo at the end is just so freaking awesome. Yeah. So yeah, great record. So yeah, it does a good job of living up to the acclaim that it's been getting this year. Next, something a little more folky. Number 22, the new Robbie Fulks album, Upland Stories, which gotta give a shout out to my friends at Bloodshot for putting out one of the best, like, folk, alternative country, and Americana records this year. Like, from the very conceptual and, and very, like, heartbreaking lyrics to, the very organic instrumentation. And also, Robbie Fulks, sort of proves that he's still relevant as a very talented and consistent, underground alternative country and folk artist under, the Bloodshot roster and stuff like that. So this was a great follow-up to, the album Gone Away Backward, which was great as well. Number 21, the new Chatham County Line album, Autumn, which, as I said in my review, would have to be probably the best bluegrass album of 2016. 16 to the very earnest, to the very earnest lyrics, the really nice, beautiful harmonies, and and also, like, the very well recorded, instrumentation on here. So yeah, it's definitely an album that I think will appeal to both bluegrass traditionalists and non-traditionalists alike. Traditionalists, pretty much. It's because they have so much talent, and also they do a good job of sort of, staying true to that old time kind of bluegrass sound, but also, like, having plenty of songwriting props too as well. To kind of keep them, appealing to a more contemporary ear or something like that. All right. We're getting into 20 here. We're getting into the top 20 right here, starting with number 20, which is the new Seat Headrest album, Teens of Denial. This record is probably the indie rock album of the year for me. 2016 was kind of a downturn for indie rock a little bit, because unfortunately there are a lot of indie bands that don't really have that much to offer that's appealing. But luckily we had, like, the new Angel Olsen record and the new Parquet Courts album. Even though it's not on this list, just listen to that. That was a great record. But, like, even better than those two, in my opinion, would have to be this Seat Headrest album. Seat Headrest album. It's definitely it's like, I would describe it as, like, 2016's new indie rock classic, pretty much. I'm pretty sure that 10 years from now, I hope that 10 years from now, this record will be the same sort of classic as records like Arcade Fire's Funeral, Modest Mouse's The Moon in Antarctica, and The Strokes' Is This It, hoping that this record will be just as much of a classic 10 years from now as some of those random albums that I mentioned mentioned are pretty much. And so like this album's like a little mix of like a little bit of like Pavement and like Modest Mouse and stuff like that. With a little bit of Strokes thing. I mean, look at the vocals. It sounds very much like Julian Casablancas a little bit, which I know may turn some people off, but wasn't really a turn off for me personally. Not for me personally. But I think what really makes this album so great is like, the fantastic and very detailed instrumentation, as well as Will Toledo's very poetic and very intelligent and definitely very heartbreaking lyrics about like anxiety and stuff like that. So yeah, I think this is the kind of record, some of the bands that I really connect to, bands like Weezer, or like some of those kind of angsty alternative bands like Weezer and stuff like that. So yeah, this album kind of struck a chord with me for that reason, pretty much. And I like kind of the dynamics. I mean, Will Toledo, he kind of mumbles his words at certain points in the songs, but then eventually he'll just explode into just real manic shouted vocals that have just so much passion in there that I really like a lot. So yeah, this record, it's a long album. It's over an hour and 10 minutes, so it's probably not for the casual listener who just likes to listen to their music quickly. But, but if you're willing to take that time into your schedule to listen to a record, well then, trust me, it's worth it, because this album is fantastic. Alright. Number 19 is the new Aesop Rock album, The Impossible Kid. Probably the best underground rap album that I've heard this year. This is sort of my introduction to Aesop, but I'm really digging this man's, very kind of offbeat, but still at the same time very intelligent and relatable poetry right here. Like he talks about like his outsider status, as well as like losing close friends, but then he covers topics like his brothers on Blood Sandwich, or his struggle with his psychiatrist on the song Shrunk. And there's even a really hilarious song on here that's about his brand new cat, Kirby. I mean, that song totally struck a chord with me as someone who really likes cats. Cats. Like killer beats on here, amazing flow, intriguing and very clever and witty songwriting. So yeah, highly recommend it. Alright, number 18 is the new Lemon Demon album, Spirit Phone, which, if you're not familiar with Lemon Demon, pretty sure you aren't unless you follow Neil Cicierega on the internet, which is basically the project. It's basically a musical project that the singer-songwriter and total internet weirdo pretty much. This record is a lot of fun. Easily one of the best pop rock albums this year. Pretty much, I love how the album, isn't afraid. I like how Neil isn't afraid to just have fun with his music. He doesn't take it so seriously. He just has fun, and, tries to be kind of absurd and, witty pretty much, So if you enjoy some of those, kind of weird, kind of new wave stuff like Gary Newman or Devo, or if you're into kind of that sort of nerdy side of rock music of like alternative rock, like, maybe They Might Be Giants is a big example. I mean, I love They Might Be Giants, so yeah, as a fan of their music, I really enjoyed this too. Very creative, oddball lyrics on this thing. Fantastic, infectious hooks. And also, like, the instrumentation on here sounds really nice and playful on here too, even though production-wise it's kind of a busy album. It could have been produced better, I think, but for what it is, it's fantastic. Number 17, probably the best soul album that I've heard all year. Eli Paperboy Reed's new record, My Way Home, which, you may remember I did a double review of this album, along with the new Felice Brothers record, which were both albums that Yet Brock released in 2016. So yeah, shout out to them again. This record is fantastic. Like, it does a good job of sort of celebrating that old school, like, kind of soul and gospel sound from, like, the 60s or the 70s. So it kind of sounds like it could have been recorded around that time, but still very crisp enough that, it could only sound like something that would be recorded today, pretty much. Be recorded today. It's kind of lo-fi, but still at the same time very kind of, well produced. Like, yeah, it sounds like a good kind of 4-track recorded soul album, pretty much. Very passionate vocals on here, and some great lyrics on here too. And yeah, not much more I can say there, except it's a fantastic record. So. Fantastic record over here. Alright. Number 16, the new Phillips album, The Narrows, which I did recently. I finally did a belated review of this record, came out in March, didn't review it until right about now, but, I finally did, and the record is fantastic. Like, recently saw him live, and I will admit that the album is great, but, when he plays some of the songs from this record live, I don't know, they just sounded so much more powerful when he was performing them live, pretty much. Anyway, the album itself is still fantastic, like, the kind of live sound of the instrumentation, and, and fantastic vocals and lyrics here. Really the first time I've listened to Phillips, but I feel this is the record that should get him a little more exposure. That should be like his breakthrough record, because, it is just so, damn good. Alright, just 5 more before we stop the video. Some of you may not know about this one, but you should by now if you're a huge Dr. Dog fan. Because Dr. Dog released another great new album this year at number 15. The new Dr. Dog, the surprise new album from Dr. Dog that just came out, Abandoned Mansion. I'll give my thoughts on. I'll share with you. I'm probably gonna share with you guys my thoughts on this record sometime soon. But anyway, this is a really good album. Like, it does a good job of, like, paying homage to, it sort of sees them going back to their roots a little bit, it's like Easy Beat, We All Belong, and there are even moments that sound kind of like something off of Toothbrush, except much better recording quality, pretty much. Better recording quality, in my opinion. So it's like definitely a much more kind of like folky, acoustic, stripped back, it's like moody album right here, but still, like, fantastic record with great hooks and lyrics and, production and stuff like that. And all the proceeds from the album, are actually going to a Southern civil rights movement. So they're releasing it for a good cause, trying to make a statement here, considering how shocking, like, the results of, like, the election and stuff like that has been, and stuff like that. Which makes me respect the band that much more. They're releasing it for a good cause, and also fantastic record. Another fantastic record. So, it's only available digitally. In fact, I've talked to a lot of people. I've talked to a few people that I know in person that love Dr. Dog too, and they still haven't listened to it yet. So, yeah, get on iTunes, people. Alright. Number 14. In my opinion, probably the best punk album of the year. The new Jeff Rosenstock album, Worry. I just started getting into Jeff Rosenstock. Probably the most important punk rock musician working today. Punk rock musician working today. Musician working today. On Worry, he definitely does crank out a very ambitious and, conceptual and fantastic follow-up to 2015's We Cool, which I also did listen to that great record. Some hilarious lyrics on this thing, as well as, kind of lyrics that seem to, there's some pretty dark lyrics. I mean, he does also sort of talk about, the internet age a little bit, as well as, but then he refers to some pretty dark topics, like police brutality on certain moments here even. Also, fantastic production and mixing on this thing, great hooks. And the second half of the album is really cool, because, pretty much all the songs on the second half are pretty short, because they all play into one another, creating this Abbey Road-inspired kind of piece, pretty much, which I think is quite, cool. Cool. And that part is just fantastic. I mean, sometimes you just gotta listen to that part alone, because it is just incredible. So yeah, great record. Alright, number 13, the new Fleshtones album, The Band Drinks for Free. A very boozy, fun, raucous, alternative rock album released on Yep Rock from the legendary band, The Fleshtones, that have been around since, the early 80s, and, definitely are pretty, definitely some, underground rock legends, pretty much. Round rock legends, pretty much. And, this record is, great, great. And, and I will, sort of share my thoughts, on the record relatively soon. But yeah, great record. And I'll mention two more before, part 3, which is the top 10. So get excited about that. Number 12, the new album from the Drones, titled Feeling Kind of Free, which, again, another record I don't have a hard copy of. Unfortunately, it isn't available in the US in a hard copy, because it's from Australia, and I listened to it on YouTube, but let me tell you, great record, record pretty much, definitely a very powerful and very instrumentally dense, a noise rock, post-punk record right here, with very powerful vocals from frontman Gareth Littard, as well as pretty powerful, lyrics too. Full lyrics too, it's definitely, and it's a very versatile record too, mixing together elements of, noise rock, post-punk, indie rock, as well as, even, elements of electronic music and hip-hop as well. So yeah, highly recommend it. And the final album I'm going to mention before stopping the video, at number 11, the new Def Grips album, Bottomless Pit. Man, this record is killer. I will admit at this point, Def Grips have pretty much put out what is probably some of their best material to date. I mean, their older stuff, it is brilliant, but really bizarre. And not that this record isn't really bizarre either, but I think this record is a lot more digestible and definitely a lot more accessible than anything the band has done before. From the incredible, very crisp production on here. I like how the lyrics on here are a little more literal than the rather kind of cryptic poetry on older records, which, you know, pops up here and there too. Up here and there too, but you know, it seems to be an album that seems to be pretty critical about the internet age a little bit and stuff like that too. MC Ride is just, you know, MC Ride vocals on here just very explosive and chaotic on here, and really like that a lot about it. But then he has diversity in his vocal range to if you just listen to the record. And he'll crank out quieter performances that still sound pretty menacing, pretty much. And also the hooks. The hooks on this thing are absolutely killer. I mean, you know, hooks on this thing, absolutely killer. Especially on my favorite track, Spikes. I mean, you know, warning, this hook will get stuck in your head. Spike, 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 spikes. Spikes. Anyway, that's it for part 2. See you for the top 10, which is part 3.